Welcome to Citizens of Reality. I'm here today interviewing Shaquenia. Is it Witherspoon or Nelson?
Legally, it's Nelson. I wrote the book in my maiden name. But legally, my last name is Nelson.
Oh, okay. Now, why is the distinction?
Why did I write? I felt like I couldn't write the book under Nelson because the stuff that happened to me didn't happen to Nelson. It happened to Shaquenia Witherspoon. Um, and so to be true to the truth that I was letting out, I wrote the book in the name of the person who experienced the pain. And it was her who went through the most of that.
This is the book we're referring to. It's a good book. I read it in 2 days. It wouldn't have taken 2 days if life didn't keep interfering. I would have been through it in about maybe 1 day, if that. Now, tell us about the book. What does the acronym, well, tell us the name of the book.
The name of the book is Bondage. It's a memoir. Bondage is an acronym, and it stands for betrayal, offense, neglect, disappointment, anger, grief, and emotion. And when I first started writing the book years ago, I knew that was the name, and I knew it was an acronym, but I had no clue what it stood for. God didn't reveal to me what it stood for until about a year or so ago. And I was praying and I was asking, how is this all going to come together? And then that's when the words came, and he showed me how women especially are bound in usually, 2 or more of those categories by something in their lives, either coming from childhood or whatever. You can find us bound in our lives by, at least one of those things. And then as I started to talk to people, and as the book, as I almost finished writing the book and it started coming together, it just became this wow moment. Like, wow, like that's it. Like these are the things that hold us. And then we get older and we don't understand why we feel certain ways or why we can't get over certain humps. And it's because we're bound by these things.
How long did it take to write the book?
Technically, the book was written probably over like a good 16-year span. I started writing this book eons ago, but it was hard to write. Like it was hard to live, right? And so I would write so much and go back and read it and be like, "Whoo, that's heavy," and I would have to put it down, and I wouldn't go back to it for some more years. But when I finally sat down, like, okay, I clearly need to, finish this book. I finished it in under a year. It didn't take long once I sat down with it. But over the years, I couldn't, it was hard. And so I had to keep putting it down and go back to it.
Well, from reading the book, it sounded like the reason you couldn't finish writing the book back then is because you were still going through things that had to go in the book.
Absolutely. I figured that part out too. I wasn't finished living the book, so I couldn't finish writing the book because there was more experience I had to have to go into the book. Unfortunately and fortunately at the same time. So yeah.
Well, you have the ability to do video production. Mm-hmm. Definitely do audio production. Mm-hmm. You sing. You write. So instead of being a multidisciplinary artist, I would describe you as an interdisciplinary artist because your art. The thing is, your artwork can actually be used in conjunction with other facets of your abilities.
Yeah.
So your arts can overlap.
Mm-hmm.
So
and they often do.
Have you considered turning the book into a play or a movie?
We are actually in the process of writing a play of sorts. It's sort of like a one-woman show situation from the book. We actually started writing that before I finished the book. Wow. And then my partner, she was all gung-ho, and I kind of like shut her down. I'm like, nope, I got to do the book. And she was like, wait, what? We're like mid-production. I'm like, stop. I need to write the book. My spirit is pulling me in other directions. So she was just all over. She's like, are you nuts? I'm like, no, we just got to stop. But then, when I wrote the book, she read the book, she understood why we needed finish the book first. So, you know, my aunt had been telling me, you should do a one-woman show, you should do a one-woman show. So we kind of just took a lot of the elements, you know, some of the singing. I'm also a poet, I do spoken word, some of that, just a lot of the elements of a lot of things that I do, and just kind of pulling it all together and putting it into like a like a dramatic one-woman show, because anybody who knows me knows I'm all drama all the time. I don't appreciate this nice laugh that you're having. However, and so we are right now working on that piece as well. A few people have asked me to do an audio book. They're like, you gotta do an audio book. It's gotta be your voice. So I'm looking into doing a little bit of that. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do an audio book. You know, I've got so much on the table. Of course, my son has determined that Lifetime is going to find me and decide that they want to make it into a movie. You know, we'll see. I don't know about that part, but there are definitely some things on the horizon. There's an album also that's almost done that is basically a companion for the book, a gospel album. So we've got some things in the work. Yeah, we've got some things in the works.
All right. Now, you mentioned your son.
Mm-hmm.
Is he aware of the book?
Yes.
And the things that are in the book?
Yes.
Did he know about that before you wrote the book?
No, he did not. My daughter knew some of it. Neither of them knew all of it. Nobody knew all of it, which is why I get so many calls. My daughter knew some of it because she's older, right? And then a lot of it comes out in my poetry, and so she's old enough to understand in the poetry. My son's always younger. He didn't. Certain parts, I sat down with him and I read with him, particularly like chapter 3, which is like the chapter that kind of sends everybody into a tailspin. I'm the one about my father. And so that when I sat down and I read it with him, because I wanted to be able to answer his questions, I wanted to make sure that he understood. I didn't want him to sit on that alone because it's heavy. And my kids love their grandfather. So that part I did with him. And now he uses, you know, he's in the grade where they have to read for 30 minutes a day and write it up. So he usually uses it right now for his 30 minutes. He's reading it. I think he's on chapter 6 or 7 or something like that. So he gets mad. He'll come, you know, he's fussing. He'll get mad. You know, and then he's like me. He gets mad for a few minutes and then he's over it. So it was his reaction was interesting. You know, we read chapter 3. He asked me some questions that he didn't understand. I answered his questions. And then we were done, and I said, so you okay? You want to talk about it? He said, well, right now I'm just kind of speechless. And he said, I just need a minute. And I said, absolutely. And he got up and went outside and started playing basketball, and I let him have that. And you know, over the weeks, every now and again, he'll ask me a question. He'll allude to something. He'll something that I know that he's read, and he'll pull it up. But he's just done an amazing job of digesting the material in the book. My daughter, she's read it. Neither of them have read it all. And she just made the comment, Mom, it's hard to read because I love you, and to know that you've been hurt that way, to know that you've been through some of those things, it's really hard for me to read. And so I don't press her. The only part that I wanted them to read, I wanted them to have read like the first 3 chapters, because for me, for the world to now have access to this, for your friends to be able to read it, and I never wanted them to be blindsided by some information that they didn't have, especially my daughter at this age, right? To have one of her friends come and go, girl, you know, I didn't want her to have that experience. So I kind of forced her to read, you know, up to chapter 3. So that because I knew if anybody came to her, that would be what they would come about more than anything. And then after that, I left her alone to read it at her own leisure. But I wanted her to at least have that part and be able to discuss that part with me, so that if somebody else brings it to her, she would be prepared and not blindsided. That was very important to me for my children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chapter 3, we're not going to tell you about. You have to get the book yourself. This is the book. Get the book for yourself. But chapter 3 and the entire book just weighed heavily on me, because I knew you growing up. I knew you during those times, even though for a while we didn't see each other because my life had gone on to do what I was doing. And I'm a few years older, so wow. but chapter 3,
Chapter 3.
and it's amazing your ability to forgive. Um, did either of your parents know about the book before you published it, while you were writing it?
Both of them.
They both
I didn't.
knew?
Yes, I didn't keep it a secret. I didn't want them to be blindsided either. And so they both knew. I both told. I think sometimes people hear me say stuff. I don't know if they believe that I'm gonna do it or whatever. But I told both my parents about the book. Probably more my father than my mother, because my mother and I don't always communicate well. So I didn't. I probably had more conversations with my father than I did with my mother. But she knew. They both knew. Everybody knew that there was a book coming. And then I think it hit, right. So it's one thing to talk about the book that's coming. And then another thing for the book to be in your hand and you have to read it. And you have to read all of this stuff from my perspective. And so they had very different reactions. My mother, after, both of them beforehand were super supportive. I'm proud of you and I got your back. And yes, you got to do what you need to do for you. And this is important. Both of them, they mirrored each other. After the book, no. My father went dark. He just kind of fell off the face of the earth, took himself off all social media, and I get it. I understood. I didn't fault him for that. I understand, right? I think I kind of felt some kind of way in that I rode with you through all of this, and I kind of, on some level, I felt like I think I wanted him to ride with me, because when other people would have thought that I shouldn't have rode with you, I did. So I know that this was kind of hard for you, but I kind of feel like I want to know that you'll ride for me, because it's not necessarily easy for me either, right? But I also have to understand that just because I was ready to turn the light on, it doesn't mean everybody else is. So he just kind of went dark. He just kind of disappeared. We didn't talk, so we didn't see him. And I just said, I understand that you have to do this the way that you have to do it, and that's okay. And so, however I felt about it, I allowed him to have the space that he needs to deal with it. My mom, she's a character like me. I'm a character too. She read the book in a couple hours, of course, and then she called and she kind of cussed me out for like 2 hours. I literally had the phone. I laid the phone on the pillow, and she went in, and for 2 hours, and I just was like, okay. I let her, because again, they're allowed to feel however it is that they need to feel.
Right.
And I was very careful in the book to let people know these are my memories from my perspective. These are my feelings. Yes, everybody has their own perspective. Everybody sees something in a different way. And so, she feels the way she feels about things, and I can't control that either. I was also very careful not to villainize anybody. I was very careful. This is not some tell-all hate book. I didn't write a hate book. No. I don't hate my parents. I don't hate anybody. So I didn't write a hate book. Even in places where I could have really been, I didn't do that. No. This book was about my growth. It was about the prison of my pain that I sat in, the things that forced me to sit in that prison, and how I realized I was in it and began my journey to get out of it. It wasn't about pointing fingers or hating anybody, but it was about telling the truth. Mm-hmm. And the truth hurts. And I say all the time, maybe it's a bad analogy, but when you turn the light on, the cockroaches scatter. They don't want to, they're not ready for the light. So my mom, she was, of course, she was upset.
Of course.
She was upset. We have since had another conversation, and I think that she's better than she was. People are so, they're like, I don't even know how to even talk to your parents, and how do you even, and all I can say is God is. I'm grateful that I had a grandmother who raised me a certain way with a certain standard. And I do have this uncanny ability to forgive in ways and in places that other people never would. And it's a blessing and a curse, I think, sometimes. It's hard. It's hard. Because I wish I could hate sometimes, if you allow me to say it that way. I wish that I could be mean and be mad and cut people. Oh, God, that would be wonderful. But it's just not in me. You know, I can distance. I've learned how to distance.
Okay.
But I don't know how to turn my heart off. I don't know how to shun you or hate you, or I don't know how to do those things.
And that's a blessing unto itself.
Yeah.
Because as somebody who grew up with the ability to take how I'm feeling about somebody and just turn it into pure rage and anger, it didn't affect the people who I wish it would have affected. It destroyed me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It destroyed me.
Yeah.
You know, so
you have to back yourself out. It doesn't matter how far down that rabbit hole you gotta get yourself out of it. And the further you go, the harder it is.
You do. And you know, God sent me a wife who actually helped me forgive my father. I love my father.
Yeah.
To this day, nobody better say anything bad about the man, because
that's it.
I've been ordered to honor my mother and my father.
It didn't say if they was the Brady's.
It didn't discriminate.
It didn't say. It said honor them, and honoring them doesn't mean that you have to allow yourself to be abused by them.
No,
that's not what that means. But you know, even with.
But it said it means acknowledge the good things.
Exactly.
Acknowledge the fact that they brought you into this world. Acknowledge the fact that they looked out for you one way or another.
Exactly.
In spite of themselves.
And even with my mom, and she and I have a very difficult time having a relationship. We're a lot alike, and writing this book showed me that. And I have to be honest. Writing this book helped me see my mother in a better light, and she doesn't understand that. But writing this book was probably the best thing for us, because I was able to see so much of myself in her, so much of my pain in her, so many of the reasons why maybe she did or reacted some of the ways that I can see it in a different way. Whereas when I was younger, it was just she hate me, or I hate her, or she's just whatever, right? Now as an adult who's gone through some more things, I can look at her and go, she was just in the prison of her pain. And although God has allowed me to come out of mine and be able to see other people who are still trapped there, how dare I look at other people and not look at my own mother? See, that would make me a hypocrite. So honoring her for me right now doesn't mean that I can't be super close to her. We're not lovey-dovey, chummy, her best friends. And I don't know that we'll ever be on that level. But when I deem that she really needs me, I go. If she's sick, I go. There are times when my spirit forces me to go, even when I feel like I'm just being on one of my...
feeling yourself.
Right? And then it's like, oh no, I have to go. And I don't have a choice. I have to go. And I go find her. Wherever she is, I get up and I go find her. And we don't have this wonderful thing. She wants, I don't want to hug. I'm like, I feel weird, but I still go. And for me, that's how I can honor her. That's how I can honor her. I can't give her what she wants yet. But for me, showing up is honoring her the best that I can. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel, we're going to be okay. And I know that we're going to be okay. I think that we've come a long way. I think that we have a long way to go. I'm willing. And I know that she's willing. And I know that, she's got to come out of that place of pain. And some of that pain does have absolutely nothing to do with me. She has a story of her own that I don't even know.
Right.
And so it's not fair of me to decide that my story is so big and so wonderful and hers is not. She has her own story, and it changed the trajectory of her life, and she now has to come out of the rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
And so I would be a hypocrite to be able to look at my own life and understand those things and not look at hers and understand the same thing. So my whole point was to do this so that my daughter didn't have to travel so far down into the rabbit hole. And so that her daughter and her daughter's daughter won't have to do it, so that my son don't have to shoot broken seed and make a baby that's already in the rabbit hole. I didn't want those things for my children. And we've already started it off wrong. So now I feel like I'm on this crusade to turn it all around.
Well, what would you say to a young person, male and female, who's out there struggling with some of the issues that you mentioned in your book? What would you say to them, or how would you encourage them that it's not over?
You know, first, the biggest thing is you are not alone. And I think that we push ourselves further into the darkness because we feel like we just out there by ourselves. A lot of times the people that violate us, the people that hurt us and confuse us are the very people that were put in our lives to protect us and to love us. And when we get those type of betrayals, it's very hard to back out of that thing. If I couldn't trust you, mama, if I couldn't trust you, daddy, if I couldn't trust you, auntie, uncle, then my God, how can I go out into the world and trust anybody? How can I feel safe anywhere? So I think understanding that you are not alone. There are so many of us with these stories. There are so many of us with these hurts. There are so many of us stuck in this bondage. You gotta open your mouth. You gotta talk about it. You gotta tell somebody. Because the longer that you allow this wound to fester, it's infecting every part of your life. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Some of these ailments that we have, all of these things are birthed in this open, gaping wound that is infected. Because you refuse to let somebody know that it's there. You're not by yourself. You can talk about it. You have no shame. There is no guilt for you. Whatever somebody did to you has nothing to do with you. It's not your fault. You couldn't have prevented it. You didn't do it. It's okay. Holding it is not helping. And you've got to find that safe place. That's why I read, and I think this is, yes. So this is the second edition. I republished the book with the author's note. When I started getting the calls, people were crying and people were emoting, they were telling me all these stories. I realized that people needed a place, a safe place to emote. And you know, sometimes you can talk better to strangers than you can to people that you've been around your whole life. And so I created the email, snelson@ladyqueenwrites.com, which email me. I'll be your safe place. Email me. Tell me your story. If all you need to do is get it out, get it out. Because you don't really understand how that first time that you just allow yourself to get it out releases the door of the prison. You may not have enough strength to walk out of it yet, but the door is open now. The air has changed. Something has shifted. And now you know, although my knees might be a little weak, I might be still a little too scared to try getting out the door. Getting out is attainable. The door is open. It's no longer locked. And once we start that journey, and it's a long journey, it's an arduous process, but we have to understand that the rest of your life will never be what you want it to be until you begin that process. So be okay with your process. Walk into it and know that you're not by yourself. There is a village of us out here ready and willing and waiting to wrap our arms around you. I can't get to everybody and I can't do it all. But if you call me from Timbuktu, I promise you I'm going to be researching where to send you in Timbuktu so you can find the village that you need in Timbuktu to support you through the journey. Because people don't understand that it's not that simple. It's not that easy. I'm still in the journey. It doesn't happen overnight. You think writing this book was easy for me? Please. Putting this out here for people to judge, because you know they judging.
Of course they're judging.
No, they judging. But anybody who would judge, the book is not for you. I'm not concerned about you. I'm concerned about the ones whose hearts have been changed, whose hearts have been pierced by something in these words. Those are the people I wrote a book for. And my children. Because I needed my children not to go down the rabbit hole. And I think, most importantly, you have to build a relationship with God. I don't care who you are or where you are. Ain't no getting out of this without him. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's just impossible. Because I was blessed. I had my aunt. I had my grandmother. I had people in my life who did love me, who rescued me, and who poured into me. Everybody doesn't.
No.
Everybody don't have somebody. What do you do when you have nobody? What do you do if you're only surrounded by the people who hurt you? See, those are the ones that I'm concerned about the most. The ones who think they have no way out. Because they're surrounded by the people who are hurting them continuously. What do they do?
Let's see. What bothers me is most people don't look at the fact that the people who are usually hurting you are the biggest people in your world.
Yep.
Because to a child, the first manifestation of God is mama and daddy.
That's it. That's it.
And until you grow up and become more mature, you don't see God the same way you do when you become more mature.
Right.
God is whoever mommy and daddy portray.
Absolutely.
So you gotta, I'm ignorant of a lot of things. And I'm not ignorant like I'm dumb. I'm ignorant because there are a lot of things I'm unaware of.
Right.
And there were a lot of things in your book that I was devastated by because I was unaware. And it made me really reevaluate a lot of ways that I think about things and a lot of ways that I would handle a situation. And, you know, one of my brothers, brother from another mother, he always says, reality is perception.
That's it.
If you perceive that this person who represents God in your world is a certain way, then your world is dark. Your world is evil. Your world is not a good world to be in. And you don't see that there's other parts to your world because you can't see beyond what's in front of you.
Exactly. And you know what was so important? Let me say this, because having your own relationship with God is paramount. Your own. Not mama's, daddy's, grandma, your own. Because you were so on point when you said that as a child, you know, what do they teach us? God is love. And, you know, all these things. And so that, you know, is mama, right? And for me, it was grandma, right? So grandma became God for me. I didn't understand that at the time. It wasn't on purpose. I didn't call her God. I didn't see her.
You weren't being an idolater
at all. But she became God for me. So whatever problems I had, I took it to grandma. I didn't take it to God. Whenever I had an issue, I took it to grandmother. Everything in my life, I predicated it upon my grandmother. I broke a nail, I called my grandma. I was sad, I called my grandma. Anything that happened, I called my grandma. I needed to pray, I would call my grandma and say, I need you to pray. Such and such is going on. Can you pray? I knew that prayer was needed, right?
Right.
I understood. But I would call my grandma. I need you to pray. I need you. Can you tell God such and such and so forth? Because he hear you. I know he hear you. So I need you to go to him and tell him on my behalf that this is what I need. And she became the conduit. And about a year, maybe not even a good year before she died, God said to me, your separation from your grandmother will be your elevation. Piss me off. What do you mean? Because my grandmother was my world. But that was the problem. My grandmother was my world. You would often hear me say, that's my rock, that's my, right?
Right.
And in honoring her, it was nothing wrong with me honoring her. But I viewed her as my rock. I viewed her as my world. I viewed her as my source
Right.
for everything. Because she rescued me. Because she was the only one who didn't betray me, who didn't turn her back on me, who loved me in spite of my fault. Right? Listen to the words now. This is what I used to say.
Right.
Grandma. So then when I got to the point when we finally we like had an argument. We never was always, we was always.
Mm-hmm.
About the year before she died, we fell out. I mean, fell out. Me and my grandmother didn't talk for a couple months. To me, that's death. Cause my grandmother talk all day, every day. If I ain't right sitting next to her, I couldn't even understand my life right now. What is happening? What do you do when you're not talking to the one that's your source? Huh?
Yeah.
That's your rock. And that's when and you could just hear it. What you gonna do when she die, Queen? Because you do know she gonna die, right? Well, no, she gonna live forever. Let's talk about it. She always gonna be mom. No, she ain't. Matter of fact, she gonna die soon. See, I knew. And that's when I understood Mommy was never my source. Mommy was never my rock. Mommy was never my world. She taught me about and led me to my source. She would always direct me to him whenever I went to her. I was just stubborn, and it was her. Now, she always told me where to go, but I loved her fiercely, and I poured everything into her. Because of the abuse that I sustained, I latched on to her like a leech. Well, she gone now. Been gone 2 years. Grandma would have been 90 years old Monday coming up. For 2 years, I've had to traverse these waters without Mommy. And you know what? I'm standing. I'm breathing. I am moving in purpose like I never had before. My relationship with God is stronger than it ever has been before. My faith is stronger than it ever, because faith was a real struggle for me. A real struggle than it ever has been before. And Mommy gone. So I think that you just have to understand, stop blaming yourself and stop blaming the other people too. Because we live in that perpetual state of blame because it's easier. But living in that state keeps us in the prison. So those are my things. I think you have to talk about it. I think you have to have a fierce relationship with God.
Absolutely.
And I think you have to understand that you hold no shame, no guilt. None of that foolishness belongs to you, so that you can start the process to come out of the wilderness and understand that it is a process. Woo, God, is it a process?
It is a process, and with any loss, you do have to hit the reset button and start over a little bit, because you're going to slide back from time to time. Things are going to shake your spirit from time to time, anytime you experience anything.
And the closer you get to God, the more things are going to shake your foundation. You're going to try anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
The enemy's busy.
Oh my God. It's ridiculous.
And
It's
the enemy
ridiculous.
will send the closest person to
Woo!
you in the moment of weakness.
Say it again.
In the moment of their weakness, the enemy will send the person closest to you to be your test.
Yes. And if you fail, you got to do it all over again.
Gotta start over.
Ask me how I know. Listen, yes.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned that you were somewhere in the process of working on a one-woman show.
Mm-hmm.
But what's next with the book? I know you're doing tours and signing a book at different stores. But what's next as far as your writing goes?
Well, working on book 2.
Okay.
Because you guys read book 1 way too fast. I need book 2 to be like 3,008 pages. Because you guys are buying this book and reading it in 2 hours and then calling me, you know. So, but yeah, we're definitely working on book 2. Book 1 was the name your pain part of the process, right? I named my pain in book 1. Book 2 is, you know, the release from bondage, coming out of it. You know, some more stuff had to happen. I know that y'all keep saying more stuff. Yeah, more stuff had to happen. And then, you know, we start the process of coming out. I mean, I think that was important. I have workshops. We're doing workshops, basically workshops and seminars based on the book. So, you know, so like basically, so I talk about name your pain. That's a big deal to me. Name your pain is a big deal because we don't talk about things. And so I have different activities, different things we do where you know, like say day 1, you're going to name your pain today. We're going to name your pain. I have different activities that we do to get people to put their pain either on paper or just get them to verbalize it, because if I can call you out, I can defeat you. But if I'm afraid to call you by name, then you still have power over me. And so we have workshops built around teaching people how to name their pain, and then what to do once they name their pain, what's the next part of the process. Teaching women that they do have virtue, that the stuff that happened to you does not define you, but it refines you, and understanding who you are as a woman. I deal with women the most because I am one, and I understand a woman more than I can understand a man, right? And so most of my stuff is geared a lot towards women and young girls. And so we're building these workshops. You know, it's just so much stuff in the pipeline. You know, I'm going to churches, I'm going to schools. You know, I'm planning a bondage boot camp. I'm so excited about the bondage boot camp. Planning a bondage boot camp. Prayerfully, we'll do it at the end of this year, like in December. I want to do it before the new year, so you can like walk into your newness for real or whatever. Okay. So, you know, this will be maybe probably over a weekend or whatever, and we have several facilitators coming in, and it's going to be awesome, awesome, awesome. It seems to be coming together nicely. So keep that in prayer for me. And just working on book 2, working on the album, you know, trying to figure out a way where this thing that drives me so much can feed my children. Very important. So if you have not bought the book, buy the book so that I can feed my children and pay the bills. But trying to be in a position where my gift can truly make room for me, because I love it and it drives me, and I love the people. I just love it. And then, you know, there's the ministry facet of it. You know, I've been speaking and they're calling me to speak at churches, so I'm doing that. I'm going to speak, still do the spoken word thing. Sometimes it just all depends. So, you know, this thing is just blowing up and taking on a mind of its own. And so I'm just going wherever God leads me. I'm being real still, and I don't move unless He tells me to. And when He tells me to move, I get up and I go.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I really enjoyed reading the book, even through the tears that I sucked back and the anger that I had and the wanting to go hunt people down, which is in my nature.
I know.
But I don't do it.
I know.
I've been steady from that. But thank you again.
Thank you. Oh, and let me just say, the book is on Amazon.com. When you're searching for it, please put the dots, because if you don't, I will not be held responsible for what comes up in your search engine under the word bondage. So please put the dots in there, or just write my name and we'll be safe. We sell it you can catch me, obviously. We have copies or whatever. If you want to book me for something, I do. We've gone to book club meetings. I've done that, you know, princess churches or whatever. You can email us at the bondage series, no dots in that, but the bondage series at gmail.com. If you have a testimonial, you've read the book, something in it moved you, you know, you have a story you want to tell me, you need to emote, you need your safe place, email me at snelson@ladyqueenwrites, and that's a ZWRITEZ.com. And I do answer all my emails myself. My team does not do that. And I would be happy, love to hear from you. So thank you.
Okay. And again, my name is Toussaint McCastle. And remember, your dreams will die if you don't try. Have a good day.
Have a good day.